What I want to do is try to go to blend Hayek and Pope Benedict, if I may, which is probably far too ambitious. But basically, I was just rereading today Caritas and Veritate, and what I thought was interesting was the fundamental claim that the Pope makes, that sort of market and morality are one. And what I think he essentially argued was for the market economy against capitalism as it is currently practiced. And in that, I think Catholicism makes a distinction between the market economy, which is in favour of, and the type of capitalism which we have, which it's highly critical of from the perspective of the market. And in that, I think I share Pope Benedict's view, and I think that's accurate. I think the model of the market economy we have, and that too many endorse, is not really a market at all. And I think it's not a market at all for the reasons that it's not moral and doesn't bring about the moral outcomes that we want. I view myself as a pro-market thinker, and I think that the poor can only be saved from their lot through the market, through ownership and through trade, and I think that will resonate with many here. But I think the market as we currently practice delivers very little of that. Now, what I want to suggest, though, just to go to Hayek's Nobel laureate lecture, which no doubt many of you at the IEA know verbatim. Sorry, I'll just put this down. And the consequences, I think, of Hayek's lecture. Now, in that lecture, what Hayek argued was, I think, counter to most modern market economists, because he actually, in my view, argued that the market was always already moral, that actually markets are not, morality is not extraneous, it's not, to paraphrase Benedict, it's not something that happens before or after the markets produce wealth, but it's integral to it. And how I derive that conclusion is roughly to paraphrase what Hayek argued. He argued, first of all, that economics isn't a science in the sense of a hard science, that the object of economics is very similar to the object of the social sciences. And what is the object of the social sciences? The object of the social sciences is human behaviour. What governs human behaviour? Mostly, predominantly, human will. What is human will? Well, that's a very interesting philosophical question, but it's certainly not derived from matter. It's derived from mind. So economics, all of a sudden, becomes a science of intentionality, a science of what humans will, how they behave, and what they value. What that then means is always already on both papal grounds, if I can put it like that, and on Hayek's analysis, what we have is actually the fullest possible description of the market economy as encompassing all of human preferences, all of human wants, and what human beings wish to bring about. To use a phrase I'd like to explore further in my work, I think that what both of this means is actually the market economy is already teleological. It is already aiming at an outcome before it begins. And that runs counter to much classical economics and many and most accounts. Now, what I think this means is that Hayek, I think perhaps unbeknownst to himself, and the Pope, very much known to himself, are making a claim that the model of market economy under which we operate doesn't really fulfill the conditions of a market. That actually what is going on is we have abstracted from a true market a privative or amoral, or in some sense serving, and again paraphrasing Benedict, serving sin, a market model that actually doesn't meet the requirements for a Catholic market-based economy. And what I think follows from this is something profoundly interesting. It suggests actually that the type of market that we should follow is genuinely concerned with the human goods that most humans want to bring about. And to paraphrase anyone from John Kay to no doubt Philip himself here, human preferences are more than just profit, are more than just seeking a price equivalence or an exchange of equal value. People engage in market activity not to get rich, but to get the means in order to secure the outcomes that they wish to realise. And what we have to do is integrate that outcome that most people engage in economic activity with with the moral activity itself, which is always an idea about what ought to be the case as opposed to what is the case. So what I think this creates is a condition for analysing current markets and finding them wanting on the basis of a Catholic account of the market. Because to go back to Hayek, if Hayek is right, or if my interpretation rather of Hayek is correct, and if actually the object of economics is human will and intentionality, then quite simply, whatever humans value becomes operative, not to the price equivalence, because some things you can't find equivalence on, which is why the Pope talks about gift. There's some sort of surplus in every form of economic transaction. There's an attempt by contract theory to promote an equivalence, but equivalence is never equalled in contract because you can never contain all eventualities. And that's why the Pope talks about trust and solidarity. And actually, contracts are an abstraction from that solidarity and in many ways a general guide to try to realise it. What this all means, to bring this to the sort of debate that I would like to argue, is it opens up, in my view, a very strong, very powerful right-left critique of current market practice. And it's very clear that the models of capitalism we're following, and here perhaps I would differ a little, I think are not working and are not delivering human flourishing. And if we have models of economy that are not delivering human flourishing, not in the sense of just privative economic terms, but things like security. The Pope also talked about we need to balance economic life with married life, with the wishes of people to form families, form structures, and create the conditions for raising children. And if our economy and our society isn't delivering on the social goods that people want to realise, and I think arguably it is not, and whatever one thinks of Piketty's work, I think there could be right readers of his text as well as left readers. But there's something gone profoundly wrong with the modern market economy. The massive concentrations of wealth, the outcome of monopolies unrecognised by current competition law, the idea that somehow this works in the general good, all of this I think runs very counter to Catholic teaching and indeed what both Hayek and the Pope were hoping to bring about. And what I think would be really interesting would be trying to criticise the current social and economic settlement from the perspective of the mutual flourishing of all. Because the type of market economy that we've engendered, in my view, is creating a new road to serfdom. We're creating a world where people, by their own activity and own labour, cannot produce the goods or the outcomes that lead to human flourishing. And that is because human beings don't look backwards. They don't look back and say, oh, I've got a TV, my grandfather didn't, I'm doing well. All human beings look sideways. Values is, if you like, a sideways generated move, i.e. it's always relative. And because it's relative, the distribution of those relative goods matters incredibly. And what that means in terms of the outcomes that we have for today, I think equality is a poor proxy for what people are really concerned about, which is security. Which is, how do you secure the conditions of economic stability for yourself, for your family, and for your children? And since that's the good that most people should pursue through the market, and yet that good isn't secured by the market, that is the condition, that is the moral premise from which we can begin to condemn current market practices in the name of genuinely producing a market that can advance human flourishing for all. And that is the standard by which I think Catholic thinkers, whatever their political positions on the spectrum, have to approach the current market settlement. And there is no market economy that can be justified by Catholic social teaching, in my view, that does not promote the human flourishing of all. And what we have at the moment does not produce the human flourishing of all. Thank you.